Okay, so the next thing we want to do is give the planet an atmosphere. And that is going to require a new shape layer. So we're going to go layer, new, solid. And we're going to pick an atmospheric color, which is about this kind of muted sky blue. And we're going to call it atmosphere. And now we've lost our artwork, but that's okay. It's going to come back in a second. We're going to hit the ellipse tool. I'm going to pull this down. If you hold the left key, hold the left hold the left mouse button, and you'll get the extra tools. Pick ellipse and draw a circle. Doesn't matter how perfect it is. Okay. Um, when we get that circle, we're going to get back to the selection tool, and we're going to drag it over to the planet. And then we're going to grab the layer here and drag it down underneath planet texture and let it go. So now we can see our atmosphere behind our planet. And we're going to adjust the atmosphere as best we can to kind of be behind the planet. It does not have to be perfect because we are about to bleed it out so that it's hazy like an atmosphere, and that will forgive the imperfections. There's a lot of fiddling here, again, and we're not going to do the fiddling. I'm just going to put it in place. So down here in your mask settings, you'll find the feather option, and if you crank that feather up a little bit, you're going to see that atmosphere kind of bleed away. And we don't like glowy planets. Planets do not glow. So in order to get rid of the glow, we're just going to play with the opacity here and drop it down a bit, and there is our breathable atmosphere. Looks pretty real. Okay, so now we've got to go to our transform properties down here. And in the transform properties, we're going to play with position and scale. We're on the first frame of the movie. Position, scale, keyframe now. Okay, these are keyframing the shape because the layer is only consisting of the mask. So we're going to scrub to the end of the timeline, and our planet has left its atmosphere behind. So what we're going to do is we're going to use the position and the scale to get that atmosphere looking like it's married again with our planet. And as soon as we're satisfied that that is happening, we can back up to the beginning of the timeline and then play it through and see if the atmosphere follows the planet okay. Looks like there's a little bit of drift, but you get the idea. We've got a very basic motion path, and the layer itself is scaling to the planet. So now we've got a planet with an atmosphere. Looks good. Okay. Now we come back to our project for the final element, and actually there's two more elements we have to do, but this is the final background element. So, and this isn't going to require anything outside of After Effects. After Effects is going to build the sun itself. So all we need to do is go back to the project, create a new layer, and it's going to be a solid, and we need this one to be black because we're going to composite it with the rest of this. We just want the sun to show. So we're just going to call it sun, composition size, okay. We lost everything again. Now, from here, we're going to want to use a effects called lens flare. And when we put the lens flare onto the composition, we immediately get a lens flare. Now this is where a lot of the fancy stuff comes from. We want that sun to be able to move a little bit, and we want it to come out from behind the planet. So what we want to do first is change the mode of the layer from normal to add, and that'll get rid of all the black and leave us with the sun. We're starting to look pretty realistic here, huh? And we want the sun to begin behind the planet, sort of. And we're going to keyframe the flare center, because that's what's going to determine how it moves. And then we're going to scrub to the end of the timeline now, and we want to move the sun just slightly over so we get that lens flare movement, and we want it to, of course, move out from behind the planet too. So let's see what that looks like. We have not moved the sun layer yet, but it will move. We're going to have that sun peek out right about there. I think I probably want it to come out a little bit earlier. So let's move it up a little higher, and that'll get it. I went to the end of the timeline and moved the sun up a little bit higher. I'll have it peeking out a little bit earlier. Bam, that's where our light burst is going to be. Okay, so now let's hide the sun down behind the planet and the atmosphere. Don't forget that. There we go. And that is going to be looking pretty real now. Okay, so in order to get that flash that we want, we're going to find that place in the timeline. We're in the sun layer. Let's close up these other layers. We're in the sun layer. And one of the effects in lens flare is brightness. See right up here? So right at this point in the composition, on this frame, roughly, we want it to flare out super bright. And we don't have that keyframed yet. So let's go to the beginning and let's set that keyframe right here under brightness. Create a keyframe there. Then we'll skip ahead to that keyframe we just created, and we're going to crank that brightness way up to almost like obscuring the viewer. And now what we've got this slow build up, and that's not good. So we're going to come down. We want it to start building up probably about here. So let's come back down to the flare brightness and change it to 100%. And now it'll get bright really quick. Boom, flash, and then we want it to kind of disappear just as quickly, or probably even quicker. So we're going to bring this another keyframe at 100% brightness, but notice there's less space here from here. That's because it builds up slowly, and then the brightness goes away quickly as the pseudo camera adjusts to the pseudo sun. So it doesn't look really sun-like at this point. It looks kind of like a dead star, and I really like the lens flare effect as it passes by. But right after this flare, I think I want it to look more sun-like. So what I'm also going to do is I'm going to keyframe the lens type. And right now we're running the 30 millimeter lens, and I'm going to want something, I think, more sunny. Let's see, I think it's the 105 millimeter is the one that really looks like the sun. Yeah, look at that. Look at that. Okay. And then, you know what? Just because it's super, super bright, let's go to the flare brightness again. Let's advance to that last keyframe. Let's take the opacity down to like 80%. It's a little bit more sun-like. And then we'll fine-tune it even further by clicking on the layer and then going to Effect, Color Correction, and let's grab the curves, and let's go to the blue layer and bring it down a little bit so that we can get rid of some of that blue and give us a yellow sun, something that's, right in there somewhere. Check that out. Bam.